Hey guys, I'm Ryan Somerville, and this is my podcast where I bring on one of my fellow climbers, talk about climbing and anything outside of it. Today I have Chris Miller. Chris is probably one of the most seasoned climbers I know. He's climbed in many places around the world. He actually has a short film on YouTube they could watch where he has a very emotional journey and how climbing is woven into that. I was super inspired when I watched it. I got super pumped after watching, just wanted to climb. I think that's always a good sign when you're watching anything climbing related. But thank you for coming on the podcast and chatting, taking the time.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. Happy to be on it.
I guess, let's start where I like to start. As always, how'd you get into climbing?
So I started climbing about 13 years ago. My older brother got me into it. He's kind of one of those people that just anything outdoors, anything adventurous, sort of is drawn to it, and he tends to be extremely good at all of them. So he was trying for years to get me to try climbing. He finally suckered me in, and I couldn't get enough of it. I think you probably know how it goes. You get the bug, and that's it.
Oh, God, yeah, the bug, yeah. Was it immediately the bug, or the...
It was pretty quick. I think it was classic, like, right time, right place. I think I was just going through stuff in life at that time. I was halfway through university, and just needed some structure, needed something to focus my time on, and
have an energy outlet.
It just captured me from all angles.
What's the age difference between you and your brother?
So he's 2 years older than me.
Okay. And so how much was he into climbing before that?
He had probably been climbing for about maybe like 1 to 3 years, something in that range. I want to say maybe around the 2-year mark.
So he had quite a lot of information to give to you.
Totally, yeah. And when we started, it was like, him and his friends, I'm just watching them do, at the time, it was like, 511D and like V6s, and you think it's like impossible, you're just like, this is so crazy. How are they holding that? And I was just super psyched.
Where was this all taking place? Like, were we at?
Yeah, so this was in the Northeast U.S., Pennsylvania.
Okay,
kind of rural Pennsylvania, lots of farmland, lots of forest.
Oh, so did you have, was it in a gym or was it in a...
Yeah, indoor climbing gym was my first experience, and then almost immediately I just wanted to get outside. I grew up in the countryside and in nature, so it's a big part of who I am. So as soon as we could, we started bouldering outdoors, and then from there it was, trips up to the Gunks, down to like Horsepens 40, Rocktown, even Red River Gorge, New River Gorge.
So you had a great place to choose from to go outdoors.
Totally, and I think I'm a pretty motivated person, so when I'm psyched on something, it's just like, it's all I want to do.
I've seen you, we've been outdoors, and then once you get or I've seen you in the gym, and it's like you're just going for it, just throwing your body at it. Like, it seems like everything is going at it, like your whole mental game and whatnot, especially also in the film that I watched, just you were fully into it. Totally engrossed. I know that you've traveled quite a bit, and so how long in the purpose of climbing, but how long was it until you were climbing in your local places to where you started to go out into the world and explore? So
it was about a 2-year period climbing in the Northeast. I started halfway through uni. So as soon as I graduated, I just knew I wanted to travel and I wanted to climb. I mean, you've seen the old classics like, Dosage and Pilgrimage, Frequent Flyers, Progression, King Lines.
I actually haven't...
No way!
These are films
you gotta watch them, man.
No. I'm pretty bad about watching old school climbing films.
But. Oh, those are great. So I mean, my early years of climbing, it was a lot of being exposed to that. Those old classic Chris Sharma films, and you got Obi, Boone Speed, everyone, and it's just traveling the world, doing what you love, and it really appealed to me. And I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. My parents were pretty shocked when I told them as I was graduating that I'm going to move to China.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
that
China was the stop number one. Yeah. So what part of China were you at?
So I was my apartment was in Guangxi province in the south. Pretty awesome town called Yanshuo. And that's the most developed area in China for climbing. So it's part of rural China. It's definitely been, booming and growing as China does, but it's super picturesque. You have these like beautiful limestone towers, these karst mountains, and kind of looks like the Chinese paintings where it's kind of these wispy smoke going through the valleys of these like wizard looking towers.
Wow, okay.
Pretty incredible.
I thought you were going to say Avatar or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there is some places, I think they shot some of Avatar in China, but different province, different region. Yeah.
I think you may have mentioned that like when we first spoke of it when we were both chatting. But yeah, so China, and how long were you there for?
So it was supposed to be 1 season, and 3 to 4 months quickly turned into 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I ended up living there for 3 years, and I wasn't there for the entirety of those 3 years. Mm-hmm. I had my apartment in Yanshuo, but we would bounce around to different provinces. We spent a lot of time developing in different regions of China.
Like bolting and...
Yeah, bolting sport routes, putting up some trad lines, even doing some bouldering. We did like a alpine trip in prep for the big wall that we were going to attempt. Mm-hmm. We spent 2 weeks just developing some alpine boulders in Sichuan province, and that was a pretty awesome trip.
Alpine boulders, as in terms of you were like just practicing like
basically
on a boulder route?
High elevation bouldering.
Okay.
So in terms of like one of the places that we were at, it was maybe about like 3,700 meters elevation. Another one maybe about like 4,300 meters elevation. So for the Americans, give it like, times it by 3 roughly. That's about how high we were, which is, even doing like V0s to V3s, you're out of breath. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So, and we had a rad crew with us, and it was just good times.
You really got engrossed in like the culture and whatnot, because that's like 3 seasons. That's quite a bit. That could change your life. That's like enough.
It did definitely change my life. Yeah.
So you did a lot of work out there, and like kind of led the way of, do you know if like some of the routes that you have like put up or just like worked on, it's become more of a mainstream place to go to?
Definitely some that, maybe not my routes in particular are considered classics. I don't really know what people are getting on these days out there. I've sort of lost touch with the scene there, but one of the places in particular that I went to 3 times during my time in China, a place called Liming. A lot of people relate it to Indian Creek. It's this sandstone crack area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like the type of stone is...
Yeah, very similar rock. However, the roots are... The cracks themselves, there's a bit more variation. So in my mind, it's actually a little more enjoyable because you don't have to take up, 8 of the same cam size.
Yeah.
You can probably get away on most routes with a double or triple rack. So more interesting movements, but it's beautiful.
The rack stuff, I just took a multi-pitch class just like recently, and like we didn't even cover the trad part, but like I don't understand. My head is not wrapped around like the whole like, I guess, lingo around like the equipment that you need.
Yeah, time to change that, man.
I did go to J-Tree and like kind of put some gear in, and I was like, this is a lot more than I expected. Yeah. So but basically you're saying that, from my understanding, is like it's not that convoluted of like what the gear you're supposed to put in. It's just pretty straightforward.
Not so much straightforward, but just varied. So for instance, if you're climbing an Indian Creek, you've got the same width of crack on a lot of routes most of the way up. Not all of the routes. Some of them will vary in size, but in Liming, you just have a bit more variation in crack size. So instead of like a number 2 cam size, or let's say like a hand jam, the whole way up, you might have hands with finger locks, with ring locks, maybe a fist jam for a section or 2. It leads to a bit more interesting movements throughout the length of the route. Yeah, rather than just plugging and chugging.
Okay.
So, but yeah, Liming was a place that I spent a good bit of time climbing at. One of the biggest impacts there in terms of route development was one of my old friends, Mike Doby. He's probably put up, I'd say, like maybe close to 250, 300 routes out there.
Wow, okay.
Mike, if I'm quoting you wrong, I apologize. But he's done so much work. He spent seasons out there, and he was the one that first invited me to come check it out.
Yeah.
We were actually at a climbing competition in Luoye, China, and someone was saying, "Oh yeah, you do some trad. Like you got to chat with this guy. He knows this awesome spot." And as soon as he showed me pictures, I knew I had to get out.
You're just like already sold.
It's incredible. Wow. It's like super rural China. There's one like cobblestone street that goes through the middle of this small village, and you're just surrounded on every side of this valley with these massive sandstone walls.
I couldn't even imagine that there was actually sandstone out there.
Yeah, I mean. China's super. It's why I ended up staying there so long.
So diverse.
It's so diverse. You've got limestone, granite, sandstone, alpine stuff, ice, even some deep water soloing in areas.
Yeah. Oh wow. So you just got every sort of taste from climbing.
Yeah, definitely got to experience a lot out there.
Is your friend still out there, Mike Dolby?
So he's now actually living in the Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's married. He's doing his thing.
Yeah, got to really explore and do that part of his life really well, it seems, and then now just
I think it was cut a little short for him. Obviously, everything that happened in 2020 with COVID, it became really tricky for a lot of expats living in different countries, especially in China.
Yeah.
So I think, him and his now wife, Anna, they had to come back to the U.S. being American citizens. And but he spent so much time out there. The two of them did. They even, in more recent years, started bolting routes out there. Because above the sandstone, there's actually limestone cliffs as well, which is crazy. Yeah.
So they're merged together?
Yeah, so it's not so much merged together, but you just have like these different tiers where, from the valley going up, you then have sandstone walls, but once you get to higher elevations or even different sections of that national park, you then have different rock. So super, super interesting area.
That is, wow, okay. That is
unheard of, right?
Yeah, because you're experiencing one part and then just completely transitioning, and you might have to change the style or of climbing or even the gear that you have.
Yeah, exactly.
So I take it his partner is also a climber.
Yeah, she is. She actually, when I first met her, it was probably around, I want to say 2013. Her and a few other of her friends, they were working on writing the Climb China guidebook.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and that kind of is one of those, not so much like a comprehensive guide, but the select guide where it goes all throughout China, different areas of it, and then for each region and each crag, there'll be like, X amount of climbs that they'll feature in it, basically to try and give someone, if they're going to that country, get that guidebook, and that'll cover you for most places.
Mostly, okay,
yeah. So...
Damn. So it's even, I've never even entertained the idea of going out to a new area, develop it and whatnot. So that's you're talking this part of climbing that I have not even experienced, but I'm sure you've experienced alone.
Big time.
Because you're going these areas, you don't even know what to expect or if it's safe, and there's the safety of it all. But I'm sure you're rolling with a very experienced crew, and then through that you just build such a huge bond, I'm sure.
Totally. And definitely safety, and even sometimes there's different areas in certain countries, for my own personal safety, I won't comment on which countries, but
okay.
But yeah, there's some regions where you'll go and you then are met with maybe military or government, and you have to try and work through these different boundaries.
Yeah.
And even sometimes it's not so much restricting people from climbing in specific areas, but as a foreigner, you cannot be in those areas. They're heavily contested areas between certain countries and the local people of that region, and there's a lot going on there, so definitely got to experience a little bit of that madness during our travels. And luckily we had a few of our Chinese friends that are climbers with us, and they were able to help kind of liaison and maybe slip a couple bucks to some officials to let us through some borders.
I would not be able to, there's you're doing all for the love of climbing, but to me, when I sort of get resistance in that sort of way, I'm just but that's how much climbing meant to you. You're I'm just in this, and at whatever cost. And I'm sure the people around you were at the same level as you, so it's you're both all collectively thinking in the same way.
Totally. And it was that balance between, wanting to explore the world and explore the climbing it has to offer, but also respecting certain restrictions in place. There's some places where climbing is prohibited.
Yeah.
We wouldn't go there. Even if it looked amazing for climbing, it's out of bounds. If that changes at some point, then the cards are a bit different. But if it's something where, access is restricted for different reasons, maybe we kind of blurred the lines a little bit, as long as climbing itself was okay. So
wow, okay, wow, that's amazing. I'm sure there's a lifetime
fun
of
times.
just stories in there, I'm sure. But so you were there for 3 or 4 seasons, you said, and then did you go to Australia next, or?
Yeah, so Australia was the next place that I officially moved to. More or less, it was based in China for 3 years. Kind of traveled about following the seasons, so I was bouncing between the Americas, different parts of Asia. In the wintertime, we'd usually head through Southeast Asia, climbing some more warmer weather, sweat our asses off, and and then from there, around 2014, I think 2015 at the start of it was when I officially moved there, but 2014 was my first trip to Australia. Australia. Went over there to climb with one of my best friends from Hong Kong, William Chan, who actually was just in town recently.
Oh, was he? Oh, damn, okay.
The same guy. And so with him and one of my good mates from Melbourne, Bryn Thomas, and we did a 3-month trip to Mount Arapiles in the Grampians, and then several months later ended up moving to Australia, and I spent the next 6 years there.
6 years? Oh, wow. I didn't know it was that long. And then, so I had been, so you were mostly at the Grampians, I
So in the first, 3-month trip that I did there, it was mostly Arapiles and then a good bit of time in the Grampians. When I moved there, I actually probably moved to one of the worst places that you can go for climbing in Australia, and that's Western Australia.
Yeah.
So there is climbing there, especially for the people that are a bit more adventurous and, looking to kind of get out and off the beaten track. Super just raw nature out there. I mean, you've got these black granite sea cliffs on the southern coast where you have these massive king waves crashing underneath you, and you can't even see your line sometimes. This is on trad
because you're
you kind of have to go on your stomach, crawl to the cliff edge, kind of peek down a bit, and you're like, all right, I think that's the one, we'll drop down there, and you basically wrap down, build an anchor there, and then it's usually in your best interest to have 2 ropes, one that you leave as a wrap line just in case something goes wrong and you gotta get yourself out, and then the other one that you're climbing on. But there's just epic stuff out there. I'm talking oceanside bouldering, even sandstone stuff that's in this beautiful gorge where everything is flat and then the world just kind of drops down, and it's pretty epic.
I had been to the Grampians, and are you just talking about still the Western?
So that's all in Western Australia, where I was talking about. But the primo climbing in Australia is in the eastern states. The Blueies, the Gramps, Arapiles.
Gramps is amazing. Yeah, I don't think I experienced it as much as I should have. But when I went in 2016, it was kind of like a trip on the whim. We were just I actually originally wanted to go for another reason, but I didn't boulder enough out there. I really didn't understand rope climbing. I mean, we mostly went there for lead climbing, but then we experienced the bouldering. We're
Did you get on Taipan at all?
No, that famous wall. We saw it from a distance because it was raining that day. But I think it might. I don't know why we didn't go. There was a reason why we didn't go, but some of it got screwed up because we got our car stuck one day.
Oh no!
Yeah. But I could have spent, especially my knowledge of climbing now. I could have been there for. I mean, I can understand why you were there for such a long time.
Totally. Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. Unfortunately, now, especially with the Grampians, there's closed. A lot of access issues. Most of it is closed to climbing. So that's a bit of a heartbreaker for the climbing community. But fingers crossed, with some good advocacy and some good ethics and working together, that efforts can be made to restore climbing and climbing access there.
That's started, if I'm not mistaken, because someone started climbing an area they shouldn't have been.
So there's kind of mixed things happening there.
Okay.
I won't dive too much into it because there's a lot of politics going on.
I'm sure, yeah.
It's a lot between Parks Victoria saying certain things that may or may not be true in some regards. I know there's things getting published in local newspapers where they're talking about climbers bolting and Aboriginal art, and the picture they used is actually a bolt that somebody else, I want to say maybe even the parks actually put in for a fence.
Wow.
So a lot of misinformation going around there, and unfortunately some climbers were trying to take efforts to do the right thing. Some weren't, but I think everyone was in the same understanding that certain areas that maybe were developed too close to Aboriginal, sites, or, significant sites for them, that probably shouldn't have been done. So I definitely think that there's efforts needed from both ends to find the happy medium there.
Right, and compromise and
totally.
Okay. But so you were out there for many of years, and I guess what was your favorite area of that?
Favorite area in terms of climbing itself, I'd probably say Arapiles. It's pretty extraordinary. You do have kind of all 3 styles there. You've got sport, you've got trad, you've got bouldering. It's more well known for its trad climbing. Kind of similar to the Gunks in upstate New York, where it doesn't matter what difficulty grade you get on, you're gonna have a blast. It's not like you're getting on a using the US system, like a 5-4, and it's just a ladder going up. You're having like super intricate moves, really cool stuff. So, and
just it's not straightforward. It's just like
totally
pretty interesting movement.
Really fun. Classics of all grade ranges. It also at one time had the hardest climb in the world there with Punks in the Gym. So some really cool stuff. A lot of history there and just epic climbing. Yeah.
Was it hardest climb as in terms of a route or a boulder or just
for a route?
Okay. I guess 515C? Or?
I don't know what the US grade would translate to, but I mean, obviously there's been harder ones since, but
The grading system I had to get used to because it was just like, it's like either 19, 20, or like, I think that translates to like 510 or something
around there.
Okay.
It's the best system.
Is it the best system?
It's the most simplistic.
Yeah.
I understand where the US system came from. Right. Obviously stemming from the classes of hiking and whatnot. Started to get a bit weird once that bridge was made between 5'9" and 5'10". But in terms of the Australian system, for people that don't know, it more or less just starts, at the bottom and works its way up, single digits, super logical, and the higher the number, the harder it is. So
I actually, that's a great question to ask you. It's just like, what is it? But you answered that. It was like, since you've experienced it all, pretty much all variations. So when you were out in Australia, you were doing that. Were you working? Were you?
Yeah. So the first trip that I did in 2014 wasn't working at all. Was still just kind of climbing full time and just roaming the world, doing my thing. And so that was great. When I did move there, I kind of was shifting gears a little bit in life. My end goal, I've always wanted to start a family, settle down, have kids, get married. And so that was my initial plan when I was moving there. So kind of was starting to put climbing a little bit on the back burner, shift gears a little. And so I did start working when I moved to Perth, Western Australia. Kind of went through a few different jobs initially, just to sort of establish myself, because I wasn't intending to move there. Kind of just came up by chance. Was in a relationship at the time. She wasn't really doing too well, just mentally had some things going on, and I wanted to be there for her. I didn't want her going through that on her own, so I was just like, well, I'm gonna make the call and I'm gonna move there. I'll go there and try and make it work out. So when I first got there, I was doing some laboring for some brickies, Aussie slang for bricklayers. So basically midsummer, direct sun, because there's no roof over our head. We're laying the foundation for the houses. It was pretty hard work.
I'm sure, I'm sure to even like, were you covering your body or just like lathering?
Totally, I mean, sunscreen, slip, slap, slop, nonstop. And we even had basically you're working in like short shorts, long sleeve, high vis, and then like big wide brim hat. And that's
and it gets brutal out there.
It's really hot. I mean, like summer temps, it's not uncommon in Perth to hit like 40 Celsius, which is like 104 Fahrenheit. Some days even hotter. But every afternoon, maybe around like 1 or 2 p.m., give or take, you'd get what they call the Frio Doctor, and it's just this wind that comes up from the south, from the city of Fremantle, and oh my God,
it feels so good.
It's like a treat.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Nothing better.
Damn. Okay. Wow. I didn't even. So what's the reason why that would come at that time? Just like the way the heat would kind of move the air and all that.
I'm probably gonna butcher any explanation of it. I don't think I have the knowledge or credentials to give that answer. But for some reason that wind would come up at that time of day every day, and it was a saving grace.
I'm sure. So you were doing that, and was it easier to get like sponsorship out there or anything, or
in terms of like for work visas? So I initially went over just on the working holiday visa. So basically, good for a year, allows you to come and go as much as you want from the country, and then you can work during that time. So that's what I went over to Perth for on my first visa. When I did the trip the year prior over to the Gramps and Arapalis, that was on just a normal tourist visa. So couldn't work, 3 months max each stay, good for a year. And then after that is when I started to apply for permanent residency, and then got that, and then 4 years later ended up applying for citizenship, and now I've got the Aussie passport.
Oh, now oh wow, okay. They gave you the stamp of approval.
I got it.
So it's easy, just and you just recently went for a mate's wedding.
So
Yeah, and so you were out there for a bit, and then but then your time had ended, and then is that where the film kind of comes into, where you kind of the one in Tangsai?
Yeah. So that basically, as I mentioned, the reason that I moved there was for that relationship.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that didn't pan out, and yeah, it was pretty torn up inside.
Yeah.
You know, I think a blow like that, no matter what happened and no matter what the situation is, it's really hard on both parties. Never an easy thing. And so I was torn up. I even in the video I mentioned, you know, I lost like over 20 pounds in the first 3 days.
When you said that, I was like, what the
I've never felt pain like that in my life. It was living hell for, I mean, probably took close to 2 years for me to even recover from it mentally.
Wow. Okay.
It's kind of a bit of a roller coaster where sometimes you feel like things are getting better and you're able to breathe a bit, you're able to find yourself, and then something will just trigger it and just sends you off into the deep end again.
Yeah, I usually use an analogy of like it's like waves hitting you. Like usually you're like, oh, it's kind of like all right, and then just big thing just comes in. You don't know when you're gonna like be able to resurface.
Exactly. So the relationship ended at the end of 2018, just before Christmas, and the entire next year that followed, 2019, I was in shambles. Didn't really know who I was, kind of lost sight of everything, lost sight of any reason for living even.
Okay.
And
were you with family at the
No, and that was a hard thing too. I immigrated to Australia on my own. I didn't have any family there, and all of really the friends that I had met there were mutual friends of both of us. And it's a pretty small community as well. So that I think also made it really hard for me. I felt like I didn't really have anyone that I could reach out to, and when you're in those sort of dark places, and really losing hope, and losing, you know, any reason to live, that's one of the worst things that you can have, is a situation where you don't have anyone to reach out to.
A support system.
Big time. So there were a few coworkers of mine that were there for me, and still to this day I can't thank them enough. You know, Seth Fortune, when things happened, he picked up his phone. I could barely get words out, and he immediately was like, come over. Went over to his house, just even if I couldn't talk about it, just to be around people was helpful. You know, another coworker of mine, Ryan Musiello, he went through similar circumstances. He's a bit older than me, and kind of went through similar circumstances, and he wasn't trying to tell me what I should or shouldn't be doing, but was just there for me.
Right.
And that helped more than he may ever know. You know, for me. And even one day, I just remember I was spiraling downwards quick, and frantically just trying to go through my phone to find someone that I could just reach out to, and to just save me, basically. And I was in tears. I could barely see my phone screen. Stumbled across a friend of mine that I first met in China. We lived together for a little bit. His name is Logan Barber. And called him. Kind of fell out of touch with him for a bit. There were some difficulties with him and my ex in Australia. So, you know, obviously it made it hard for me to really, you know, pursue a friendship with him. And, you know, that was tough too, because you never want to do that to people, and you feel like you're being a shitty friend. But I called him, and he picked up, and I could barely mouth the words. Just, you know, he's like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And I was just like, I'm not doing good. I'm not doing well. And immediately was like, send me your address. I'm coming to pick you up.
He was in Australia.
Yeah, he was in Perth as well. Picked me up, got me out of the house. You know, just again, being there for me. And I appreciate that more than any words could describe.
Just someone be able to spend time with you and be able to help you, try to get you out of your head or just away from yourself.
Exactly.
Distract you.
Because that's the hardest thing, I think, when you are in those dark places. You can't eat, you can't sleep. Sometimes you can't even stomach water. And it's really hard to get out of that headspace or get out of that situation when you aren't healthy. You know, when you're not getting enough sleep, when you're not getting enough food or even water in you, it just makes it that much harder.
It's everything to help you support to be like a healthy person. It's not, you're not doing any of that, and it just you continue just to spiral.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean that was most of 2019, and the documentary and Gegner, we never really the friends of mine that filmed it, produced it.
Yeah.
We never really had a plan for that.
Okay.
It kind of stemmed from me making the decision, because initially when everything was falling apart, I kind of I didn't know if I was coming or going. I tried to make things work. That didn't, those efforts were unsuccessful, and basically I then had to come to terms with, I need to start looking out for me now.
Yeah.
And doing what's best for me.
Right.
And so in that time, I had to juggle the decision of, do I stay in Australia? Do I leave Australia? I wanted to leave Australia and just try to heal. However, I was in the final sprint of getting my citizenship. Had already done all that work.
Right.
And now it was just a waiting game. And if I left, that would basically put me back to square one. So
you kind of just roughed it out.
I stuck it out. In my mind, it was a matter of, even if I never utilized that, having that citizenship, it gives my future children such a good head start in life. Anywhere that they're born, they'll be Aussie and American citizens.
Oh, okay.
And
wow, that trickles down to them.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So for me, it was just like, let's finish this up. Let's see this through. The benefits of this is extending more than just myself. My future family can benefit from this. So,
that's some foresight, even in the state of mind that you were in. Probably it's like you were, Yeah,
and I think it just comes from like my core being. Like I've always wanted to be a dad. I've always wanted to, have a family, and so it's something that's always on my mind. Definitely was a living hell though, staying in Perth and in that situation for the rest of the year. Was not easy, but got through it. Made the decision near the end of the year that I was gonna sell everything, hit the road, go back to climbing and traveling full time. And unfortunately 2020 was the year that I picked for it, and we all know how that panned out.
Was that like a kind of set you back a little bit, because you had done all that work from 2019 to like kind of get yourself out of this, but then you're like, all right, 2020 gonna hit it hard, and but then it was like, oh fuck, like here's a second wave.
In terms of mental aspect, I'd probably say no. I, over the course of 2019 and even throughout 2020, my mental fortitude and mental resilience really compounded tenfold. Even to the point where, I had a pretty brutal accident in 2020, June 9th, 2020.
Right.
And that had me in hospital for ages, undergoing surgeries. Some weeks it was, anywhere from 8 to 12 medical appointments per week. Wow. Between physio, chiro, surgeries, scans, even just different checkups. So it was a lot to go through. For a long time, I had no independence. I couldn't move. I couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't feed myself or anything. So that was pretty challenging. Definitely the most difficult physical situation that I've been in.
Because you're probably so used to being self-sufficient, like 100% of the time of your life, like, or totally. Besides when you're like a baby. But for going from that to, and that's one of my biggest fears, is just being able to not be able to even like go to a restroom. Like that's then that was a mountain biking accident, right?
Yeah. So when I arrived, basically in 2020, I set off as planned. Basically, my itinerary for that year was going to be go back to two of my favorite spots in the world that I loved. So first one being Ta Kek, Laos. Next one being Yanshuo, China. Try to, because during most of 2019, I wasn't climbing. I wasn't even in a position to think about climbing. I was going through so much worse things that I couldn't even bring myself to go to a gym, to get outside. Near the end of that year, I started to a little bit, but it was tough. And so my goal was to try and get back on rock, get back into some shape, go to some of my favorite places, and then go to all the places that I never got to go to that I always wanted to for the next 1 to 2 years.
Okay. So, and then you somehow ended up in LA.
So that was a turn of events. So that week in general was crazy. I was supposed to be in Laos for the month of February, and then for the month of March was supposed to be in Yanshuo, China. obviously China was scratched off the books with COVID. They closed their borders pretty quickly. And then from there, I was like, all right, we'll scratch that off of the itinerary for the year. I'll spend an extra month in Laos. And then from there, I'll just catch the flights. I'll book new flights, go from Laos over to Switzerland. It was going to be a few months in Switzerland and France and South Africa and then Spain, Greece, etc.
Wow. Okay.
Pretty epic trip.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, only got one stop in it.
Right.
But so when I ended up in LA, it basically was, I woke up one day, I knew that stuff was going on around the world with COVID. You kind of keep an eye on it, especially when you're in a country that maybe doesn't have the best, medical system and stuff, such as Laos. And I heard from a friend who's a local in town that they might be closing the Lao-Thai border.
Wow.
And they might be closing the Friendship Bridge over the Mekong. So when I heard that, I got a little nervous because I've been into the hospitals in Laos, luckily not for myself, but for friends. And they are not the place where you go and get good treatment. It's pretty brutal. Good healthcare is just over the river in Thailand. Thailand actually has amazing medical.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of local Lao people will try and go across the border into Thailand for treatments. And I just knew it wasn't really a place that I wanted to get stuck during this global pandemic where nobody really knew what was going on.
No one, yeah.
Yeah, so I decided, all my friends went climbing that day, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to hang back. I'm going to do some research, just try and figure out what's going on, where things are at. And after several hours of digging around on the web and asking a few more, local friends in town, I made the decision. I was like, I got to get out of here.
Right.
They're going to close these borders, and I'm potentially going to be stuck for an unknown amount of time in a place that doesn't really have a strong medical structure to take that on. So I ended up packing my bags immediately. Didn't even get to say goodbye to my friends. Caught one of the last buses out of Tak Hek across the border into Thailand. Arrived over in Nakhon Phanom and just over the border, and all of the buses or trains were sold out to then get to Bangkok, and that's where you needed to get to in order to fly internationally. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. I end up seeing, searching online quick, that there's an airport not too far away. I want to say maybe it was like somewhere between 25 to 45 minutes away from the train or the bus station that I was at. Convinced a guy in a truck that was parked outside to drive me over there. I threw my bags in the back, jumped in there, got to the airport. Mind you, the flight that is the last one out that day going to Bangkok, it's leaving in like 40 minutes. I don't even have a ticket.
And luckily there was space on there?
There was space on the flight. I got there. I spoke to the women at the reception area or the ticketing area and was just like, please, I'm just trying to get on the flight here. I know it's cutting it close. Is there anything that you can do? They were incredible. They helped me out. They booked the flight. They got me on it. They even held the plane a few minutes, and I caught the last flight out of there over to Bangkok. Spent the night because we arrived in the middle of the night. And then the next morning went from there to the airport to try and fly to somewhere.
Anywhere that could get you out of the...
Exactly. And mind you, I'm still intending to get over to Switzerland, right? So I get to the airport and I just see canceled. Every flight is just getting shut down. I ended up booking 3 flights to try and get out of there. And at this point, it was a matter of...
it was just like whatever, this flight could be canceled, that flight could be canceled.
Basically, and I was, kind of chatting with my siblings. I've got a brother and sister, and, was chatting with them about like, this is crazy, trying to figure out what to do. And my options were starting to get more and more slim. Switzerland, even Europe is starting to look like less of an option because they're now starting to close borders. So it quickly turned into either going back to Australia or going to the US. I hadn't lived in the US for about a decade, so it was pretty interesting and I never intended to live here again. So inevitably, my brother and his wife were like, it's crazy right now, like, come over here, you can stay with us.
In Pennsylvania?
They're in San Diego.
Oh, San Diego. Oh, okay.
They now live in San Diego, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna book some flights. I'll try and get to LA. Managed to book 3 flights. 2 of them got canceled. 1 of them went through. So managed to find myself in LA, and this is all like chain events after finding out that they're potentially going to close that bridge.
Yeah, and it's like you can't even revert back to like where you were starting from. Where it's like you're going to be stuck there.
Because they did close that bridge, and even some friends that were just a few hours behind me, they got stuck in different places along the way. Some of them were stuck in Bangkok for several months because they ended up closing like all the flights going out.
Right.
So it was, when I tell you, like as close to the cutoff as could be. I'm super glad that I made the call to take that rest day.
I feel like that could be a film within itself.
It was a crazy ordeal.
Holy crap.
Don't worry, it gets better. So
okay,
I arrive in LA,
right,
and as soon as I land, met up with a friend in LA, and she was like, "Oh, you can stay with me," and my boyfriend, like, come and hang out with us. And
I'm sure they were maybe a little like,
they were nervous
because you're coming from
and it was more just like they had two separate places. I think she was okay for me to kind of stay there, but like still everyone was a bit on edge, and it was only a temporary. It wasn't like come and stay with us as long as you need. It was just like, hey, I need a place to stay. Can you put me up for a night?
Right.
Really appreciate that they did that for me, because my intention was to get to San Diego.
Right.
Unfortunately, my sister-in-law didn't feel too comfortable because in my course of making my way to the U.S., the news is putting out more and more updates on it, and everyone is really starting to get worried.
Yeah.
Love her. Do not blame her at all for feeling that way. She just no longer felt comfortable with somebody coming from Asia, which at the time was like the epicenter of everything going off, coming over, and people are dying and nobody knows what's going on.
How long this thing's going to last for.
Totally. And, my brother and I, as brothers do, you don't always see eye to eye. He took her side and supported her with it, and I love that he did that. When it comes down to it, family is so important, but when it's between your spouse, they have to come first, at least in my mind. So
right.
The fact that he supported her decision, I think, was such a good move, and it was the right move for him.
It's great that you were very understanding of that, because I'm sure he was hesitant.
It was and it was a hard place for me to be in, because here I am now, just like, well, shit. Wow. I don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
Like,
and this is my family.
I'm like, man, I'm in LA. I also feel like a foreigner in my home country. Like the way I think, the everything, even my accent's changed a lot now, but like the words that I was using, the way that I approach different scenarios, definitely had a bit of shock where I felt like I was in a different country, and yet this is the country that I was born in.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really have anywhere to go. Obviously, the place where I stayed the night before was just temporary. So ended up, and this is where it gets interesting, ended up thinking, well, you know what? Let me just get somewhere out in nature, somewhere with good climbing, and I'll hold down the fort there. So Bishop was Bishop was the place that came to mind.
Wow.
Nothing was closed yet.
Yeah.
I was like, let me just get up there and we'll see what happens. Found some shady, like, Craigslist ad. It literally read, "We'll drive you anywhere. You pay for fuel each way. $10 per hour." And I'm like, all right.
That is very interesting.
I was running out of options. I tried for rental cars, trains, buses, planes. You couldn't get anything. LA was like a ghost town. It looked like The Walking Dead. When you were out in the streets, there was no one.
This was
was like mid to late March. I want to say somewhere around like the 17th or 19th of March.
Yeah.
And so I was running out of options. Couldn't get a car, couldn't get any transport. So I hire this dude. I was pretty sure that I was either going to get like raped or killed or potentially both. It was like slim chances that I was going to make it to Bishop, but I'm like, I'm going to go for it, you know, like, fuck it.
This guy was like somewhere, you just found him somewhere in LA, like
off of Craigslist. Which is always the most trustworthy place to begin with. This guy pulls up. He's wearing some brand new looking like military hat. He's got a wig on, and I'm like, oh my God.
A wig on?
Yeah, it was like a blonde looking mullet type wig, and I'm just like,
that's pretty sus.
So as I'm putting my bag in the back, I take a picture of the license plate, I send it to my brother, and I'm just like, hey man, I'm getting in this car. I hired him off of Craigslist. He's taking me to Bishop. If you don't hear from me, by whatever time,
I'm in this.
Like, this is who you need to alert the police to come and look for. Kept my knife in my pocket just in case.
Just like holding it the whole time?
Literally. Because I know in the U.S. maybe a knife isn't good for much these days. Everyone's a bit trigger happy here. But anyways, I was pretty nervous, but I was like, you know what? I've literally just had this crazy transit to get here. I'm running out of options. I don't really know what to do. So you're kind of making some decisions that may turn into some more, more than you thought you were going to get. Either way, it gets better. We're driving. So first I go to get in the front seat, and he just looks at me and he's just like, "No one sits in the front seat." And I'm like, all right, mate, you could have just told me, please get in the back.
Clarify that.
Get in the back immediately. Like, before I shut the door, I'm like checking to see if the doors open the other way. I'm like, do not trust this situation.
Yeah.
We're driving a few hours into the trip. All that's been, first it was silence for like 40 minutes. And I was like, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Then we start talking, we start breaking the ice, and then it just got real heavy. And he starts talking about his life, and I'm trying to be empathetic towards him, trying to listen to
work with him,
but then it just starts going where everything is wrong. No, he has no one. Like, basically life is not in a good place for him, and
he's on edge.
He's on edge, and I'm hearing him. I've been in these situations too, so like I can empathize with him, but at the same time I'm like, there's a dude on Craigslist, he's wearing a fucking wig, he's at a low point in life. I don't know what he's gonna do, and so I'm just like, oh man, like starting to get a little more nervous. And then as we're driving, deeper into the, I don't know what you call it, Alpine desert, whatever that environment is. The car starts having issues.
Oh shit!
So he's having electrical issues with the car. So every time he hits his indicator, so to go like left or the blinkers, or if he turns on or off the high beams, it does like a full pulse through the car.
It's like
any electrical component will like quickly go on and off. So that's like the radio, the lights, the wipers, the ABS. Like, we're like breaking our necks, because it triggers the ABS and stuff.
Holy shit!
It's like I'm starting to get a little nervous, or I'm just like, I hope this car doesn't break down out here.
And you're just stuck with him in the middle of nowhere.
I even asked him politely. I'm just like, oh man, it seems like there's some stuff going on with the car. You mind just like not doing the high beams or something?
Or like triggering the lights to go back.
Exactly. And he hears me, continues to ignore that, continues to do what he's doing, and I'm like breaking my neck in the back seat. And lo and behold, it starts getting worse. It's now happening more frequently. It's getting darker, and he just then looks at me, and this is the worst part. He looks at me in the rearview mirror, direct eye contact, and he goes, "Oh, it'd be a shame to break down out here. Ain't no one around." And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I am not making it to Bishop.
And how far were you into the trip by then?
So we must have been a few hours into the trip.
Yeah.
I've never been to Bishop in my life.
Oh, wow.
And so I don't even know how long we have to go.
Right.
And I'm just like, holy shit. Yeah. And so then he's trying to call up. It's like, it's got to be like 9 p.m. at this point. He's trying to call up like mechanic shops in Bishop. And I'm thinking like, they're all closed, man.
Yeah.
And he like is asking, he's like, can I use your phone to call him? And I can see he has a phone. And so I'm just like,
you don't know if
I'll type it in. Yeah, I'm like, you're not taking my phone. So I'm like, I'll type it in. I'll put you on speakerphone. He's talking to this guy. He somehow convinces one of the shops, like there's a guy still there. He's like, listen, I'm arriving at this time. Can you wait for me? Something going on. Convinces a guy. And in my head, I'm just thinking like, I don't buy it. Like, this could be some other person that you know. Like, so we get into Bishop, and he's just like, we'll go straight to the shop, and then I'll drop you off. And I'm like, nah. Take me to the spot that I'm going to. It was the Hostel California, THC.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, take me there.
Yeah.
Do your business afterwards. And I'm just like holding that knife, just like, dude, do not try.
You're like
anything,
hands sweating.
Yeah. I get there. He drops me off. I like get my stuff out of the car real quick. I go inside. I'm like, holy shit. Like, just survived madness after like multiple days of flights getting canceled on me and trying to sleep in planes and like buses and shit.
Are you like in shock by it? Like, you're just having, this is over a week or so span?
This is over like several days. I don't think it was quite a week, but like getting close to it.
From you leaving
from me leaving Laos.
Yeah.
And it was just like,
I'm
a little delirious, but I have that personality where like when push comes to shove and you've got to execute, like you switch on and you get shit done, even if you're running on nothing. So
I would have just given up on like step one. Like,
it was crazy. And so anyways, I made it.
Yeah.
It's like I don't even know, somewhere between like 10:30 to midnight. I have no idea. We get in, it must have probably been closer to about 10:30. And so anyways, I get in there, meet two climbers, one of who's LA local, Joe Chun, and there he is. He's got a bottle of like whiskey or something in his hand.
Yeah.
Gives me the biggest hug, and he's like, "Here, man, you want a shot?" And I'm like, just give me anything. Just right now. Like, I don't even like hard liquor. I'm a softie when it comes to that. I think it just tastes disgusting.
Right.
I'm just
same.
like, yeah, I'll take two, please.
You just got so much that
it was nuts.
Put you out.
So survived that. We're now in Bishop.
Yeah.
Wake up the next day, climbed in the Buttermilks. Was an amazing day.
Wow.
And then the very next day, all the climbing closed in Bishop.
Was that when the like restaurants and everything had closed as well?
Exactly.
I was there actually because I remember going.
You didn't save me from that guy.
I know. If I would have known, I would have been like
picking up my bones on the side of the road.
I'd be like, get in the car, Chris. You don't know me yet, but I'll save you. Like literally, I was there on that. It was on a weekend, right? So I was at the brewery. And like we had finished up on like Sunday, and then like we just walk out and we see that it's closed, and we're like, "Why is it closed?"
Everything shut.
Yeah. Oh damn. So
that was like my second full day in Bishop.
Yeah.
Everything shut. We couldn't go climbing. Like couldn't even really go to restaurants and stuff. I think like some places were doing takeaway. But, and so it was kind of crazy, and I was like, all right, we were at the hostel, we stayed there. I think Joe was there with another climber, Betty, and they kind of hung around for 2 weeks, and then they both went their separate ways. I think she maybe went back to the Bay, and he went back to LA, and again, I didn't have a place to go, and so I spoke to the owner and the manager there, both of who are great friends of mine now.
Oh wow, okay.
And they basically said like, listen, you're welcome to stay here, because there was only like 3 or 4 of us that were there, because everything was shut, nobody was going anywhere.
Yeah.
They're like, you're welcome to stay here. If you leave, we just don't know with everything going on if we feel comfortable with you coming back. But if you want to stay here, you're welcome to stay.
Like stay here in terms of like go back to LA or anything, or just like stay to go get like groceries?
In terms of like staying in the hostel, like living there.
Okay,
basically.
okay. Yeah.
So yeah, they rented me a room for super cheap.
Wow.
More or less just was like, again, like 3 or 4 of us living in the hostel there, which was pretty epic.
Yeah.
Having the place more or less to yourself. But I felt super appreciative. I didn't have anywhere to go, so it was nice that they extended that offer. And then because of that, it made things a little tricky, because I also then couldn't leave. Like it's like if I stop living there and I go somewhere else, I might not have a place to come back to.
Yeah.
But yeah, stayed there for 3 months, ended up becoming best friends with them.
That's awesome.
And then from there moved up to Mammoth, got a place up there for 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, as fate has it, in my first few days there, had a pretty wicked downhill mountain biking accident. And
that's when that happened. Oh my.
Yeah. It was a year, man, I'm telling you.